Resident Evil 8 fills me with some real Ethan Winters style rage. Which I guess means it doesn't really make me that angry.
And I cried when I thought,
I'm pretty mixed on Resident Evil 8 overall. I had fun playing it for the most part, but it also really wasn't what I hoped for. After Resident Evil 7 slowing things down and returning more to the series' survival horror roots, Resident Evil 8 focuses a bit more on the action again, and that's kind of disappointing. The overall tone of Resident Evil 8 is inconsistent. There are times it feels fairly creepy, however, other points in the game seem very removed from trying to be atmospheric at all. Hell, there's even a boss battle where you're in a tank with a machine gun and a giant cannon. I tell you, nothing creeps me out more than this. Getting some explosive weapons in Resident Evil games is one thing, but I kind of feel like the massive explosions should be saved for the actual finale. But don't worry, Resident Evil 8 also has an ending explosion as well.
Where?
Resident Evil 8 is again set in the first person like Resident Evil 7, and again has you controlling the protagonist from that game, Ethan Winters. And let me tell you, I was super not thrilled to be playing as Ethan Winters again, but as the game went on, I cared for it even less.
What the hell? Hey, can you hear me?
it's you, the child's father.
Child? Hey, wait, do you mean Rose? Is she here?
Rose! Rose, yes. She is in great danger.
What are you talking about? The monsters?
They're coming.
No. Wait, where's Rose? Who's Mother Miranda? Rose is here?
Resident Village's gameplay is similar to 7's, though it feels tweaked a bit for the more heavy focus on action. I did, however, feel like your viewpoint was slightly claustrophobic at times, like Ethan has some serious tunnel vision going on and the zombies can often sneak up on you. I mean, not zombies. They are Moricas and Lycans. They act pretty much exactly like zombies though, and really the best way I found to deal with them was whenever the enemies are around music would start up, I'd just back up to where I came from or against a wall. And then just let the enemies come to me, because I often found when I didn't, they'd end up being right behind me. Some of these enemies are smarter than your average zombie though, and do stuff like fire arrows at you, which feels very Resident Evil 4. In fact, a lot of Resident Evil 8 feels like it wants to be Resident Evil 4 again. You have a weird religious leader who's taken over a somewhere in Europe village. You have to run around said village near the beginning of the game, just surviving until a cutscene plays and ends this section. Which was one of a few spots I didn't really feel clear on what I was supposed to be doing and left me a bit frustrated. Another spot that irritated me a bit like this was in Castle Dimitrescu. When you're up in a tower and need to beat one of the Dimitrescu daughters, you're supposed to blow a hole through a wall. It just says a strong attack could open it up, so I wasted my time trying to hit it with a shotgun and stuff before realizing it had to be an explosive.
Give me more of that beautiful face. You've ruined the hunt!
Oh, and another thing that is extremely Resident Evil 4 is you have a mysterious merchant following you around. And when this guy first showed up, I said out loud, "Oh, come on."
I've been waiting for you, Mr. Winters.
How do you know my name?
Anyone who is anyone has heard of the likes of you. A hero searching for his daughter.
This merchant is named the Duke, and just like the Sub-Zero-ish merchant from Resident Evil 4, he manages to get all over the place so he can sell you items and upgrades.
Thanks to your consistent patronage, I've expanded my services.
But at least with the Resident Evil 4 merchant, he looked like a Mortal Kombat ninja, so you believed a little more he could end up in all these spots. The Duke doesn't even seem like he's able to stand under his own power. They also give the Duke a bit of importance story-wise, even though no one else ever comments on him, so it feels a bit weird.
Duke, I need a favor. Take me to Miranda.
I assumed as much and am already on the way. But Ethan, are you sure of this? Your body is, well, falling apart.
Yes.
Foolish of me to ask.
Speaking of foolish questions, who or what are you?
Even I can't quite answer that.
And based on one of the Duke's lines, they clearly knew what people would be thinking when they saw this guy.
What are you buying? Just something an old friend of mine used to say.
The actual village portion of the game is just kind of okay atmosphere-wise. It is a bit creepy going through this messed up place, but it's always pretty bright out while you're exploring this area.
Maybe they're out?
Yeah, maybe they just completely wrecked their house, then went out for ice cream, Ethan, you idiot! You have to return to the village a few times, and the darkest it ever gets is dusk. It would have been good, I think, had night fallen during one of your return trips.
Made contact with a group of hostile bioweapons.
There's more than we thought. Watch out. BSAA craft spotted. 2 guards. I can take them.
Don't get cocky.
Okay, Captain. I'm reloading.
And I don't mean when you are blazing around as Chris with a bunch of automatic weapons and there's just about no atmospheric horror going on whatsoever. The game kind of peaks early on too, with you visiting the castle of everyone's favorite vampire witch waifu, Alcina Dimitrescu. And again, going through a castle is very Resident Evil 4. I did like the atmosphere of going through the vampire witch waifu's castle the best. It had the strongest creep factor to me. You could also be stalked by the witch waifu or one of her daughters during parts of your castle exploration.
No! How much blood and sweat do you think it took to raise those daughters? You have incurred an impossible debt! Stupid man thing! You won't live long, even if you run! Shall I drink your blood fresh, or slice your neck and spill out the rest?
I guess that's just going to be in every Resident Evil game now. Not that I dislike the clock tower-esque giant character you can't beat yet stalking you around. It was one of the more effective things in this game, I suppose. Though Vampire Witch Waifu could get a bit annoying and just kind of camp out by the safe room.
Go, Sal and Rhodey, look everybody.
Which, just like in the RE2 remake with Mr. X, once you go in too far enough, she couldn't care less about you. Even a shot in the butt isn't enough to make her give a shit. The boss this time around is Mother Miranda, who was pals with old Oswell E. Spencer, one of the founders of Umbrella. While Spencer went off and played with viruses, Miranda loved her mold more. Miranda used her crazy science to mess around with the Megamycete mold, trying to find a suitable replacement body for her daughter she had lost, Eva. She has a chance of doing this because when Ava was buried, her consciousness was fused with the molded collective. You know how that goes. So Miranda figured if she got her baby a new body, she could just pop Eva's mind right back in. Miranda's experiments led to creating a new family with waifu Demetresque, Donna Benevenito, who controls dolls, Salvatore Moreau, who is a Quasimodo-like frogman, and Carl Heisenberg, who controls electric and magnetic fields. Like I said, the Demetresque castle had the best horror elements, and for me, this is where the game felt the most Resident Evil. The doll woman's area just didn't gel that well for me, even though it was trying to be creepy. I think part of the issue is just where they placed this within the game. They take your weapons away from you during this in an attempt to make you feel vulnerable. But when I already knew this game's heavy reliance on action at this point, it just kind of made me feel safer because I knew they weren't really going to be throwing any enemies at me to fight. You are hunted around by a giant baby that can eat you later on, though.
Dad?
And I suppose a baby chasing you around is pretty scary, just not really the horror I want from Resident Evil. Moreau's area is just around some mines and a dam, not super gripping. It's like a sewer level where you're just wanting to get through it to get to the next area. Heisenberg's factory just goes on a bit too long, and while I don't mind some techie parts near the end of a Resident Evil game, I just got a bit fatigued with these surroundings for this long.
There's more?
There just wasn't a lot about this area that stood out to me, and it started feeling too samey. I also wasn't too big on so many tech creatures. Ethan Winters can also be a bit of a pain in the ass control when trying to run. He often feels like he's got two left feet. I try to stop and let him rest a bit and then run again, but then he often still stumbles around like a bozo. One plus I can say though is there are quite a few rewards to exploring around, and you'll find quite a few hidden areas off the beaten path. Though a few of these areas are a bit overly empty for my liking. Now, Resident Evil Village is a bit of Resident Evil 4-ish fun at times, killing enemies, collecting treasures, and upgrading your weapons with the merchant. However, like a lot of the game, the various areas are inconsistent for how much fun or interesting I found them. Really, when you're trying to sneak around the castle and which waifu or one of her daughters catches you, I think kept you on the edge the best. But that is the first of the Mother Miranda children you take out, so yeah.
So we finally meet.
What are you talking about? We already met before this. There was even a cutscene. How could Vampire Witch Waifu forget Ethan's face? So, for some reason, they were really intent on not showing you Ethan's face in both RE7 and 8. Even his character model, when you unlock it in RE8, is shadowed on the face. I find it a little amusing that the story told at the beginning of the game mentions a mirror, as you won't be able to use one of those anywhere in the game. They're all conveniently covered, broken, or fogged up. You'd think Demetresque would have a lot of them around given her vain nature, but she's really only got one main one that she goes smashy on right before you're able to view the face of boring. People had already extracted the character model of Ethan from Resident Evil 7 anyway, and Capcom had to know that people would get rid of that shadow on his character model page so that they could fully drink in that generic mug of Blandy Boy. Ethan Winters kinda sucks as a character. Gonna talk story now, so there will be some more spoilerific things. At the beginning of the game, we find out that Ethan got the good ending in RE7, where he saved that wife of his that he had some mild feelings about.
Bye, baby.
Goodbye. You made it. I'm glad.
Did I?
And don't you worry, he continues to have very mild feelings about her.
I don't understand why you are so...
Mia! Get down! Mia! Mia. Oh, God. Chris? What the hell?
Sorry, Ethan.
No! What? Why?
Chris, what is this? I can't believe.
What? Why?
I can't believe.
This Chris Redfield evil shooter of wives storyline is of course just a fake out, which I figured it would be the moment it happened. It turns out that the Mia Ethan was with at the beginning of the game was really Miranda cosplaying as Mia with her molded powers. So how long were Ethan and Miranda getting it on? The real Mia ends up being found in a jail cell again, but this time by Chris, who I guess cares more about her than her husband, as the most he seems to get is mildly perturbed.
I'm glad you're safe, Mia. Ethan! I gotta say, I'm surprised you made it this far. It'd be a shame if something happened to you now.
Sure, Chris. Why not? You killed Mia. Now do me and finish the job. Hey, did you say Miranda? How are you involved?
Leave it alone, Ethan. You are out of your depth.
Hey, don't I get a say in this?
These just don't sound like the words of a man whose wife was shot in front of his face and now his baby's been kidnapped. And when Ethan finds out that it wasn't really Mia that was shot, he gives no strong reaction about the fact she might still be alive and doesn't seem to add finding that out to his priorities.
It was Miranda.
What?
She's a bioweapon. She changed her appearance and pretended to be Mia.
Why us, Chris? What the hell is going on?
On the flip side, Mia cares a lot about the stupid emotionless lunk.
Where is my husband? Where is my daughter? Wait! Where's Ethan?
So, yeah, Mother Miranda wants Ethan and Mia's baby Rose as the host for her daughter, which is why she was playing house with Ethan instead of using her crazy molded powers to just fly away with Rose. Guess it made sense at the time. And why does Chris Redfield hold off on telling you that it wasn't really Mia he shot? Why, for dramatic effect! He really doesn't seem to have much of a real reason.
I know it's too late now, but we really should have told Ethan the plan.
There wasn't time. We didn't expect Miranda to act so soon.
Even so, you should have told him.
Yeah.
Yeah? Guess we just needed some weird twists with Chris in both 7 and 8. We also had a family of sorts going after you in both 7 and 8 as well.
Welcome to the family, son.
So, really, they copied the things from 7 that I didn't particularly need to see again, and then skipped the major things from RE7 that made it a more effective Resident Evil title. So, like I said when I covered the RE2 remake, that its gameplay felt like a merger between Resident Evil 4 and 7, there it felt like a more cohesive mix than how 8 blended the two. Again, it's not like I hate this game, but I just wish it was a stronger horror title than an action one. Panic seems to be what the game goes for the most, particularly with the Moreau section at the dam, and then having the heavily armored creatures charging at you in the Heisenberg factory.
Damn it! Shit!
These things will jump you, but they're not going to give you that strong sense of dread that I usually like these types of games to give me. One thing I can say that I definitely did dread in this game was anytime there was an elevator or lift I had to go on. These go past the point of ridiculousness in a few spots. I'm guessing at least the game is loading during these, but one of these rides goes on for over a minute, so if you need a bathroom break during a speed run or something, the lift to the mines is the best spot for that. These elevators take about as long as any of Mother Miranda's ridiculous resurrect her baby plans, as she's been apparently ruling this village since 1919.
In this village, all these monsters and freaks, this is her life's work. Some sort of crazy experiment with the mold.
Really playing the long game, that Miranda. She's lucky the Megamycete mold gives her all this extra time for her slow-ass schemes. We find out that the evil little girl from RE7, Evelyn, was actually a clone of Miranda's child Ava, but for some reason she can keep going down that path to get a body for her baby's mind that's just floating around in the mold. Because they hadn't thought of that part of the story when they made 7 and are just connecting it now. I mean, it was a bad plan. It made much more sense to kidnap Ethan and Mia's daughter. For reasons. Rose is a super baby, of course, which is why Miranda wants her to be the new Ava body. Why Miranda thinks or knows this isn't super clear.
I don't get any of this. How did Miranda even know Rose exists? A moldy little bird told her, maybe?
We can figure that out later.
I guess she thinks because of Mia's connection to the mold, that's why Rose is a super baby, but as it turns out, it's really Ethan who powered her up.
Ethan is gone.
No! You're wrong. I tried to keep this a secret, but... you don't understand how special he is.
And neither does he. Somehow only his wife knew this secret and it got past dumb old Ethan.
You're so dumb.
Evelyn? How are you here?
You're dead. You were murdered by Jack. You died there 3 years ago. You mean you didn't think it was weird, no matter how much you got hurt?
What am I?
Now do you get it? Your whole body is nothing but mold!
Yup, it turns out now that Ethan died during the events of Resident Evil 7 and is now just a mold man. I feel like this retroactive continuity was added to explain why he can take so much ridiculous abuse and keep going. It really happens so much during this game, I found myself not caring. Ethan just gets seriously messed up in both of these games he stars in. Honestly, it got to the point in 8 where I was surprised if he didn't suffer damage that should probably end his journey right there during a cutscene. Sometimes you dump a little first aid juice on the wound, but other times you just kinda shake being impaled off.
You've ruined everything!
So hey, as big of a blanky blank as Ethan is, we at least gotta give him a hand for being a real Energizer Bunny. 'Cause he does need a hand. Again. Ethan just has no luck with his hands. He got his left one chopped off in 7, then it gets partly eaten at the beginning of 8. But don't you worry, that right hand also gets what's coming to it when Witchy Waifu slices it off. That's nothing a little first aid juice can't fix, though. Hell, it even fixed the sleeve on Ethan's coat, I guess. Also, depending on how you played, Ethan might have had to stick a foot back on during the events of 7. Ethan being such a big dummy that he doesn't even realize that he's dead does at least fit with his character. And that's the real reason Rose is a super baby, of course, 'cause of her dead daddy. And it's funny that Mia knew that Ethan was a molded man now and he didn't, but it's also kind of messed up she never told him. And I guess it's possible Miranda knew about Ethan, though if she did, she was kind of dumb about it because she Kano fatalities Ethan's heart out, then just assumes he's dead. Though, to be fair to Miranda, the molded creatures usually have their weak points still. Why the Megamycete mold fused with Ethan like this, though, is anyone's guess. Maybe it just felt bad for this boring guy and that he really needed something interesting going on. And I really do not understand the insistence on keeping Ethan's face not shown during the game. It really does not help us connect with him as a character. I mean, the underreactions would be an issue regardless, but if during some of these cutscenes we got to see some emotion out of him, it might help a little. Like, here's Ethan finding out that his baby has been crystallized and chopped into pieces.
Why, you have your daughter right in your own hands.
What are you saying?
That flask seems to contain her head.
What?
Rose is...
Don't say another word! This just can't be!
Your daughter's essence is still intact. Her powers are truly unique.
Who could even do this?
She can be saved, you know.
Saved? From this? Are you insane? You'll pay if I find out this is a lie. Fucking Joker.
My baby was cut into pieces and now has to be puzzled back together? Aw, shucks. Miranda supposedly does this little rosemary chopping to test the baby's healing powers, but really it's just so you have a reason to go after the four lords / Miranda's adopted children to get the baby parts back. But another absolutely crazy, stupid Ethan moment happens after you get all the jars of baby and then just plunk them down into a pillar so that you can progress in the game and you just leave them there.
Don't worry about the kid, Ethan. It'll be fine.
The supposed whole reason he is there is to save this baby, but if the baby pieces need to be used as a progression item, so be it. No hesitation. Ethan is also just really dumb when it comes to meeting up with Heisenberg, as he doesn't actually like Miranda either and loathes what she's done to him. So he offers to team up, but Ethan is all no about it because, I don't know, Heisenberg says that his baby that can be puzzle-pieced back together is powerful and Ethan doesn't want to believe that?
Listen, Ethan, you're being played.
What are you talking about? You think this is a game?
It's a test. To see if you're strong enough to be a part of Miranda's family.
I don't want to be a part of Miranda's family.
Neither did I, but here we are!
I just want to fix my daughter.
So do I. Do you have any idea how powerful that kid is? Even Miranda's scared of her. You and me, Ethan. Together, we can go save Rose, and then we can use her to grind Miranda into paste.
My daughter is not a weapon.
I don't understand why Ethan wouldn't take him up on this. He's offering to help save his baby and stop Miranda. Like, did the offer make too much sense to him? No, can't do that. If Ethan took Heisenberg up on his offer, he'd also not have to go through one of the longest areas that gets a bit tedious, Heisenberg's factory. Ethan seems to object just because Heisenberg says they can use Rose to stop Miranda, but he doesn't say anything that seems to suggest sacrificing or abusing Rose in any way to do this. And in the end, Rose does end up helping you defeat Miranda by weakening her, so really, Ethan is just once again a big dummy. Sure, Heisenberg is probably not the most trustworthy guy, but from what we see and hear, he mostly just wants to no longer be controlled by Miranda and have his life back. Heisenberg has certainly done some questionable things in his factory, but we kind of forgave Mia for being all crazy when she was under mold and Evelyn influence in 7. Even if you teamed up with him to just stop Miranda as a temporary truce, it'd make more sense than Ethan's stupid refusal when it seems like the best way to actually save his baby and get out of the situation alive. Well, you know, as alive as Ethan actually was at that point. I think Heisenberg really needs to say something more objectionable for Ethan's outright refusal to make much sense, but even then, it'd still be a better plan to agree until Miranda's taken out and then worry about Heisenberg. Ethan Winters is an idiot. He probably would have been totally screwed too by not teaming up with Heisenberg if Chris Redfield and his team hadn't have shown up, which was a part I was kind of excited about as you get to play as Chris for a bit, but then it's just a Resident Evil 5 style actiony siege on a village with automatics and explosions. And unlike RE5, it's not even co-op, so you don't even have that. So... Yeah.
Yeah?
Ethan starts to fall apart after you defeat Miranda, and you have some very dramatic shots of the back of Ethan's head. He gives Rose to Chris and then blows himself up with the village to take out the main mold root.
We got to the root of the problem.
What?
There's an after-credits sequence of Rose as a teenager, either implying a vast time jump or that she grew up quicker like Evelyn. Can't really say I'm super enthralled about the continuing adventures of Super Baby, though. I kinda wish Resident Evil didn't have to go quite as over the top as it often does. The series is already a bit ridiculous with zombies and other mutant creatures, so it's okay to keep some things a bit more grounded. Like, every boss doesn't have to mutate into something almost unrecognizable. It's okay to save a giant mutation for the final boss, cause that gives that more impact. It also helps with the element of horror for these battles not be so over the top with giant sky fights and stuff. Like, when you have to dodge Vampire Witch Waifu in the basement after she's cut your hand off, that's a way more effective sequence with her than her actual boss battle. 7 had its ridiculous moments as well, but I still think it did a much better job balancing things out. I also wish some of the sequences in 8 led to something more, like when we find out Miranda has apparently only started really going crazy on her village after 100 years and we run into some of the survivors. It's kinda obvious they're all gonna die off quickly. It would flow much better story-wise if the woman you saved towards the beginning, Elena, didn't just die off and ended up being the merchant since she knows the area and it could make sense so that she could find stuff. I mean, it's still kinda silly regardless that during this you're buying and selling crap, but you can probably still integrate these things a bit better and give a story reason why it's happening. Resident Evil Village is a fun game, but I want a more classic survival horror type experience and not so much the action horror like 8 provides. It just kind of feels like Capcom completely did not understand what made people happy with 7 and then just set out to make Resident Evil 4 again. And honestly, I get less out of Ethan Winters as a character than I did anyone from the original Resident Evil with the campy voice acting. While still a rather boring protagonist in 7, Ethan was bouncing off more characters more often in that story than 8, where you're stuck with him and his bland reactions for long stretches. But hey, at least Ethan did get to bust out this quip.
Eat shit.
Thank you, Ethan. You're a shit sandwich.
I don't like this movie, doesn't look too friendly. This Villagey's so fake, that toy is gonna break. Phelous, don't let me down, you need to be around. Grab that chocolate pizza, I even like it cause I want.
Phelous, so Phelous, bring on mortal comedy. Phelous, so Phelous, an animation movie. Phelous, so Phelous, what really is so fun? Phelous, so Phelous, what's your opinion about?
Death. Yes. Death has visited them all.
It wasn't that funny.